So here's a video that's not about me, but about some people that I meet, and it's a different group of people than I used to meet, but I sort of regard them as my kinspeople now, and they are generally men, because men are the majority of our street homeless population. There are much more options available to women. Feminists, as I was saying to one guy yesterday, he's not actually homeless, by the way, and he doesn't pretend to be, but he's in pretty dire circumstances, which I'll explain further. So not everyone who sort of is begging, as it were, is homeless, and not all of them pretend to be. And there's more than homelessness to be worried about. Homelessness is a really, really big one. It's a really big one. You can just see it, how it just everything in your life just starts to fall to pieces, because the things that you can own become really as much as you can carry, and what you can carry is hardly everything that you need. And for some of these guys, sometimes their stuff gets stolen, and like one of these guys, like he had a little like camp cooker thing, so he could actually cook his own food, and then that got stolen, and he had no means to replace it. And he was rather confused about the benefit system, and he's too sick to work most jobs. He has diagnosed conditions, but he says that he can't get the medical treatment he wants because it's $60 to go to the doctor. And I said, oh, you don't have a community services card? And he was misled or somehow into believing that he couldn't get a community services card unless he had a home. And I think the same thing with a benefit or something. And I got to know him over a series of, he's in the region that I'm staying in emergency accommodation, and I'd see him pretty frequently because he was on outside the supermarket, one of the supermarkets around here. I go out with my eyes open these days, and I do pay attention to red flags. I think a lot of the trouble that I've got into with people is not that I don't see the red flags, but that I rationalise them, or I try to tone down what is my natural intolerance for moral imperfections, including myself. People who are very hard on themselves tend to be very hard on others as well. It's a kind of pathological conscientiousness, and it's pathological because it's pretty unrelenting, and it's just holding people, including ourselves, to standards that just aren't possible for humans. I can tolerate my own imperfections because I have control over them, but I don't tolerate others' imperfections. And that may or may not be a personality flaw of mine, I don't know. I don't think it makes me a narcissist, because a narcissist has two standards. I have one standard, and it's impossible for anyone, including myself. It is. I've never, ever described myself, unless it's just in a very kind of, unless it's in a particular context that requires this kind of binary distinction. I've never described myself as a good person. I don't think I'm a good person. But when I say I don't think I'm a good person, it doesn't mean I think I'm a bad person. It's just simply not binary. And even if it's not binary, but you've got to put a category somewhere, I think this is one of those kind of spectra where, in most cases, trying to put a category on a spectrum is probably not a good idea, because it ends up being like one of those pass or fail classes where you either get 0% or 100%, which doesn't reflect a spectrum but reflects a binary. And I had that with my graphic design course. You didn't get a grade, you got a pass or no pass, and you would be given several chances to pass. And yeah, that's a bit scary when you're hiring a graphic designer. But the same thing goes, I think, for a lot of academic degrees where, if you get a law degree, it just looks like you're a competent lawyer. And I've had a friend who's whined about an ex-boyfriend of his who got a very good job as a lawyer, scraping through law school, just because I guess he just had that kind of, well, I'm not going to say je ne sais quoi. He ticked all the boxes really for a hire, and yeah, I mean, I think the primary privilege that I really do believe that the primary privilege, and socially, I mean, money's big. Money's probably, it's money and looks basically. So he was a very good-looking guy. He was also Maori, and he was also gay, and that's pretty hard to fucking beat. If you're applying for a job, that's pretty hard to beat, But yeah, his good looks and his, his very charming and engaging manner, I think, I think those just get people so farther than most other attributes. And yeah, so yeah, you just don't know quite what you're dealing with. And so I've got to go, when I go and I try in my really quite blind way, because I mean, Asperger's is pretty much just social blindness. It doesn't mean the inability to learn, but it's an inability to sort of instantly detect with one's senses. So I have to pick my way through. And yeah, I'm the people that long cons work on, or any kind of cons, I mean, they generally are people like me. And I've, said for quite a long time, people who con other people, because they're con means confidence. It means taking someone, it's manipulating their trust. That's the confidence part of it. And I don't think anyone's clever for, and I've actually said this before, you're not clever for fooling a gullible person, for fuck's sake. It doesn't make you clever, it just makes you a fucking asshole. And so I've always been a bit of a bleedy heart, charitable person. And then when I had my eyes open to the fact that there were like grifters, and it's not just grifting for money, it's grifting for, much bigger, more complex sort of structures of gain. I did learn, I had that, as I say, that switch, it was a total switch. It was one of those real, wow, this is my life before and this is my life after moments, and I've had a few of those, and that was learning about personality disorders, and suddenly made sense of why people who just wouldn't understand, well, knowing that they did, but they just wouldn't own up to it, right? So yeah, so but people who, I give people a few chances to, too many chances really, too many chances to be, but the benefit of giving them too many chances is that I have a very, very, very strong data set from which to balance my beliefs on. It's very stable, so I'm like, okay, well, you are absolutely refusing to understand something that all other factors would and priors would suggest that you do understand. It would be very unlikely if you didn't understand. I'm just like, yeah, see you later. Now that risk is, I tend to leave a bit of a bigger margin of risk or error for people who appear to be down on their luck, because I now understand, and I do not endorse the term lived experience, but I get where it's coming from. It's misapplied. It's misapplied as, reliably statistical data, but what it does mean is it really is know me before you judge me. I think that's really what, because there was that campaign kind of maybe a decade or so ago, know me before you judge me, with people with sort of different kind of mental and neurological illnesses. And mental illness doesn't mean that you're crazy. Unfortunately, it's a catch-all term for all sorts of things that really shouldn't be in it. And it's not just semantics, because you get kind of streamed into different support services depending on how you're diagnosed or perceived, and that's fucking dynamite for people with, like I say, people like me with trauma and pathological stress and that kind of thing. And I'm judged as being perfectly capable and powerful because I have fuckloads of agency. I've got what my one of my ex criminal legal aid barristers called sass. And much of this has been developed over the 20 months that I've been just fucking chain linked, victimised, including by some very, very nasty people that I had ended friendships with, and then they came back and they just did the same thing, fucking snakes. Yeah, and powerful, very powerful in the sense that they are very secure socially and have a big network of people whom they've already turned against me, because that's what they do. Like, you think you're just dealing with what they say versus what you say or can prove, but the people around them are already aware of you. One's reputation precedes one, so by the time you're caught in a conflict with this abuser, everybody already has embedded a belief about you that favours the predator, who has for a very long time painted themselves as a vulnerable victim. And I've seen this in action actually, where I was like, hang on, I've got to catch myself. She's painting herself as a victim of someone at work, and it's like, fuck, she is very, very good at it. And I realised, god damn it, she's just totally fucking lying. And I only know this because I've been on the receiving end of these, her taking my social connections apart. And she's a pretty good liar. I'd say 7 out of 10. I don't know if I'm characterising that as 7 out of 10 skill or 7 out of 10 by a population, but she's pretty persuasive. I don't know if she can really keep the continuity going. No, she can't really, but she's very persuasive. But also a very, very nasty person. So if you get to know her, I don't know what other people are like. And people say I've got a good judge of character. I've never known what that meant. How would you have such a thing? And I don't know. I think half of having a good judge of character is actually just making bad assumptions, and I think half of it is just being more instantly, having that recognition being more instant, whereas I have a lag. It's a bit like, I don't know, talking over the radio to someone in Antarctica, where you're gonna, well, it used to be like that if you're talking to someone. I remember I was in England, living in England as a child, and talking to someone in New Zealand over the phone, like my dad or something, and there would be like a few seconds lag. So it's a bit like that for me, except it's not a few seconds, it's like a few days, or sometimes a few years. So yeah, people whom I think I gauge to be pretty secure, I don't give a lot of chances to. I don't tolerate bullies. I don't, I just don't tolerate them. And the thing is that they may have reason to be cruel or indifferent to me. They may have, completely sincere reason, but their sincerity doesn't give me any duty to train them through it or to be there as their punching bag for what they feel is a righteous reason. It's just not my problem to deal with. Where I do feel, what I do think is dangerous is ignoring people who, or making that, I don't want to make that quick judgment with people who appear to be very vulnerable, because there are some people who appear to be very vulnerable and they're not, and as I've touched on before, I've got to think, what's the risk profile here? Because the thing is that you can trust a victim for practical reasons, like you can run a working trust, because that's just a kind of a program that could cause losses to yourself, but they're tolerable losses, and if they're losses, then you can, if you've got the risk tolerance for it. The problem is trusting people when it comes to trusting that someone else is abusing them, and that's the really big fucking problem that I'm in, and I'm in a real dilemma here, because I want people to believe me, because I'm being horrifically, like I'm just being flayed alive slowly, and people won't believe me. But the flip side of that is that they are believing the people who are claiming that I'm victimising them, who are the actual victimisers. And so there's got to be, that's just a stalemate. It's a stalemate. And to break the stalemate, you have to sort of examine the factors more closely. And you don't want to assume that someone who appears to be more powerful or secure in society, whatever, is automatically the victimiser. But what that does is at least show that they may not be the victimiser, but they're probably not that helpless. And that's a sort of a bit of a key thing. And again, going back to something that I read ages ago, and I ended up storing articles all over the show, trying to find the perfect app to store things. I went through so many things like, what's that one with the elephant? That multimedia storage thing. That seemed to be the answer to my prayers, but it just ended up glitching all the time and not saving things, and I find it hard to code things, whatever, but I've ended up storing things all over the show like a squirrel with dementia, and I need to find the article because it was really good. I think it was like training Scottish police or English police. I think it was English police. Basically, how to distinguish between victim and offender, and I've mentioned this many times, and it was really, there are many factors for them to go through, like a reasonably scientifically devised kind of rubric. And one of the really key questions, as I've said many times, and I've said many times to people in person, who in a situation of mutual accusation, which one can escape the situation they're claiming is occurring? And for me, a lot of the abuse of me has been happening in my home, in my fucking home, and then and then dislodging me from my home. And I would say that would make me the person who can't escape the situation. And people go, won't you just move out? And it's like, moving out is not escaping the situation, because part of the problem is homelessness. Moving out of your home is not a solution to homelessness. I'm sorry. And I am now homeless. I am now fucking homeless. I'm not street homeless, but I fucking very nearly was. I very nearly was street homeless. At least for an unknown length of time before a room at the women's shelter became available. And that's what I was facing on the third night after Lauren kicked me out, because I had a maximum of 2 nights at her neighbours. you know, that was my limit, and that's totally fair enough. And then I was fucked, you know, fucked. And people, I just love it how you go and ask someone, you know, for help. Like, I went to ED and I'm like, and they just like, well, have you talked to any family or friends? And it's like, oh wow, fuck, I thought I was really smart, but I totally forgot about people that I know and care about me. Not. Like, having to tell people, I don't want your advice. I'm asking you. If you can't help me, just say no. I would rather that you helped me, but the second best thing if you can't help me is to stop giving me stupid advice like I'm a fucking idiot. Oh yeah, that's right, I've got like 10 friends who have invited me to stay with them, but I just thought I'd wring my hands until they bleed and walk around in the rain crying. Because I'm a fucking dipshit who can't think about the people in my life who are there to help me. Why do you think I'm at fucking ED? Do you honestly think I haven't, you know, I don't think about family and friends? Like, I've got nobody. Nobody. And I do have people who pretend that I have people, because, and I don't know what their deal is pretending that, but they just keep on forever and ever and ever just repeating this mantra that help is there for the taking, except literally no one will help me. Literally nobody. The only help that's on offer is to look at the bright side of life, and it's like, thanks, well, I already do that, but looking at the bright side of life doesn't help me with the dark side of life, which is what is causing my problems, right? And so, having been, and that's abuse, and at this stage it's deliberate abuse, and one of them I have reported to the Scottish police, because the Scottish laws on harassment are even more fucking insane than Jacinda's and what's his name's attempts, and it's like, well, I don't agree with this sort of CCP style sort of spying on people, but you know, and dobbing people in, but in this case, you know, Scottish law really is designed to capture this kind of abuser who poses as a devout Catholic, and you know, and she's a classic victim blamer, you know. I'm the bad person for suffering and complaining, and I just need to look at the bright side of life and recognise this beauty in the world. It's like, huh? Where did you get the idea I don't see the beauty in the world? Is it a zero-sum game? Like, I've got to choose between seeing the world as only ugly or only beautiful. It's really weird, and well, it's not weird. It's just a logical fallacy, which is what most manipulation tactics. And the manipulation in this case is not to make me do anything. It's just to make me feel like shit. And DM is grey. It's not working. Sorry. And so I've muted you. And on YouTube, so if you comment or whatever, I can't see it, but if I do see your comments, I just remove them because you're a piece of shit. And what you don't tell somebody, you don't instruct someone to see the bright side of life. People who have survived through years of abuse and neglect without any help, I'll tell you something, they already kick your fucking ass at seeing the bright side of life, you know, or we wouldn't be here, you know. We could teach you a lesson, so you shut the fuck up until you've been where we are and see how you fucking go. So don't fucking tell grandma how to suck eggs. I know how to see the bright side of life, and that's what keeps me going. But what my problems are being very, very, very severely harassed into suicide attempts, my most recent one being on the night of the 13th in the police cell. And a lot of people want to talk to me about healing, and it's like, healing is something for once I'm out of danger, okay? Like when a soldier is on a tour of duty doing real battle, you don't start like a PTSD kind of program for him. He's in fucking trauma now. Okay? It's the same thing I keep saying about a bear attack. You don't start like getting, medical and psychiatric care while they are being eaten alive by a bear. You get the bear off them first, stem the fucking blood loss, and then you stabilise them first. That's basically what they do. So when news reporters report back from what the hospital's reports, they're in a critical but stable position. That means that being stable doesn't mean that you are okay. It just means that you are no longer declining. You're in a very, very, very bad state indeed, but you're no longer deteriorating. And so when I had sepsis, like there was a point that I was stabilised. I was still very, very, very sick, but my kidney function was no longer plummeting, and the bacteria levels in my blood were no longer growing, is that kind of thing. Like you're in a shit situation, but you're stable. The first thing you need to do is stabilise them. Like you don't start trying to treat someone and rehabilitate someone when they are still plummeting, and I am plummeting very, very, very hard. It's made me very sensitive to other people who, like the reason that I'm not on the street is because I'm a woman. That's not the only reason, but that's what if everything else, if me and a guy, if everything else matched, and it's just the sex that differed, like if all other variables were the same, it's because I'm a woman and I'm seen not only as more vulnerable, but people just find women more appealing and safe. They think we're safer, and they think that we're more, people just think women are cuter. So as someone said, yes, men do get more respect, but women get more love. And the thing is that the respect is not given to those homeless men on the street who can't even really afford to wash their clothes, which I've said to a couple of them, you really need to prioritise that, buddy, because you're not, the marketing's very, very bad. And I'm not talking about manipulative marketing. I'm just saying, people who are just sort of hunched over with their face covered and they stink, they do seem frightening, and if you're clean and you have your face sort of open, and I'm sorry, but people do judge books by their covers, and sometimes we're right to do so, sometimes we're wrong, who knows, but if you want sympathy, it's better to not look like, if you want people to see who you really are, it's better not to cover it up with a layer of fucking filth, Anyway, so I've got to know these guys, and one of the things, the reason I started this video, which is now coming up to 29 minutes, was this revelation that I've had recently. Okay, so the first thing, there's this guy, I haven't seen him for a while, and I don't want to name his name. I'm so bad at not naming names. But he is outside one of the supermarkets that I go to frequently. And because I don't, I'm in a shit situation too. And I had a charity mugger a few weeks ago in town, and it was when I was staying in the backpackers after that born again Christian found me crying in Riccarton Mall, and he helped me find a backpackers and drove me there. Only one that I could afford and that thing, and I was walking around the city, probably just trying to get stuff done or whatever, and a charity mugger. And the thing is that I will actively go to sign up with a charity that I want to sign up with. The muggers don't get me anymore. and I know who the people are or the animals are that I want to support, and I do, and I did well into the point that it was just getting insane, because I was paying money that I couldn't afford, and then I was borrowing money, and then I wasn't able to pay the money back, and it was just silly. It's just like, look, this is not this is not how charity is supposed to work. So I'll get back there again. But I was supporting 5 charities single-handedly, of course, for quite a long time, and they were children and animals, and then old people. That was Oh my God, lonely old people. That fucking gets to me so badly. And generally I'm just, I got to the point where I was quite firm with charity muggers, and I'd just shake my head no. I'd smile and say, I'd just shake my head and say no. And if they wouldn't accept that, I'm just going to say no, I'm going to keep walking. And like, I just don't put up with it. And this time, this guy just, he didn't take the shake of the head and the smile and the no as I walked past, and he said, "Why are you too busy?" And I just said, "I'm homeless." And that fucking stopped him in his tracks. It was beautiful. It was fucking beautiful. It's like, just think, don't. We have to judge. But of course we judge, and it's impossible not to judge, and it's stupid not to judge, and it's immoral not to judge. But a lot of them are, they are just very clever salespeople, and they don't particularly care about the charities themselves. So hitting back for that was a good one. I'm homeless, so I'm my charity at the moment. And so talking to this guy, I don't know what to call him. I'll call him Skeeter. So I didn't have much to offer, but I just said, would you like a banana? And he said, oh yes please. So I went to buy him a banana, and then I stood and talked to him for a bit, and I guess we're sort of buds now. I mean, on that kind of casual level. And I learned more and more and more about the situation. It's like, and since talking to a couple of others, and I had a long time talking to a new guy who was in Skeeter's place last night, learning a lot about the kinds of, because they're given plenty of food by people, there are lots of nice people, but the food is often completely inappropriate for them. For one reason, they end up getting a whole bunch of, like Skeeter was saying, he ended up with something like 8 roast chickens one day, because people are being so lovely, and like, oh, he probably would really like some protein and something really warm. And they all had that hive mind on that day, and he was just like, fuck. And now he's got a phobia. He's actually developed a full-on phobia of roast chicken, because he didn't know what to do with them, and he was just camping in his car, and they all got, he woke up one morning and they were all just covered in ants, and it's just like, it's fucking traumatized him, the poor guy. So he's saying I would accept everything except roast chicken, because it's fucking freaked me the fuck out. And it's like, oh my God. And I say, you probably get a lot of bananas then, don't you? And he says, I get so many bananas. And I'm like, damn. And he's like, he says, it's fine, you didn't know. And I'm like, and he's like, but why do people give bananas? And I said, well, I thought of a banana because it's kind of quick, but also kind of slow release energy, and it comes packaged in its own skin, right? So, you can put it on the ground, it's not going to be dirty. I said, I think that's probably why. Like, bananas are that go-to to put in your handbag, in case you get hungry. But then I just learned a bit more and more and more. And the thing is that some of the things he needs are just fucking staples. And he was really run down, the poor guy, because he eats only what other people choose for him. And quite often it's like a bit let them eat cake. But what he really needed, he was like, I bought him some vitamins one day, just a few iron tablets and a few omega-3 capsules, just a little bit, I didn't really know. And he was like, oh my God, thank you so much. I'm so run down, I'm so nutrient deficient, and I'm I can't, I would never tell people what to buy me, but geez, I really need this, and I'm like, oh my God. And I ended up breaking my own rule, and I ended up buying him a little tin of tuna, and I bought him just a bunch of non-perishable stuff that wasn't the most delicious but had protein and and he was like, oh God, like I really want a salad, you know. And it's like, oh geez. So I sort of bought him some things that I thought were, non-perishable, quite sort of, with plenty of veggies and stuff. Because the thing is, like, he was just totally reliant on what people give him, and no one else knows what they're giving him. It's a bit like turning up to a potluck dinner and everyone's brought potato salad. And then there had been two guys, so one guy before him in Maryvale and another guy that I talked to last night, and both of them are missing their... I think the first guy was missing almost all of his teeth, and the guy last night was missing the top row of his teeth. And so what they can't do is eat, or there's just so much food that they simply can't eat. And sitting with it, I sat with him for probably about an hour, just having a bit of a chat about things. There was it's just so heartening to me to see how many people would come by and go, here you go, brother, and give him a packet of stuff, or, give him really thoughtful things. And there was this one absolutely beautiful young woman. She was just so lovely. She came, just an angel. She came up and first she gave him $10, and then she sort of thought that I was sort of in his position too, and I'm like, oh no, hi, this is Peter. I just met Peter, and we're just having a bit of a chat. And she said, and I said, you're so kind, and obviously Peter was as well. And then she went back in the supermarket and she came out with like a bag of apples and I think something else. And she was just so lovely, and I said, thank you so much, she was so lovely. And she, like, sort of caressed my face, and, like, she was just a beautiful, beautiful soul. And unfortunately Peter couldn't eat the apples, so I ended up having the apples, and then someone else bought him a packet of, like, really good quality, like, whole grain bread rolls, and I ended up having the bread rolls as well. And I'm thinking, geez, I can just sit next to people with teeth missing and probably get my groceries. I'm not even begging, I'm just going to sit next to them and just take everything they can't eat. It's just a very, very strange situation, benefiting, I'm there trying to sort of figure out how I can help. And I end up getting some spoils, which makes me feel like, and then I said, your sign is not very good. Like, it's quite beautiful, and I think maybe his daughter or something had done it for him, but I said it's very unclear from a distance, and it's very, like, quite difficult to read. And I said, look, I've done I've got a minor graphic design qualification, and I think you just need to make it quite plain and make what the important thing really, really clear. And he was like, yeah, I guess I need to make another sign. I will when I can, because I think he's staying in a men's shelter at the moment. And yeah, like, he can't own too many things because they're just going to get stolen. And then I went home, and what I've done with Skeeter so many times is come home, and I've been very keen to get home and just relax, but it's just like, I've got to hurry back because I don't know when I'm going to see him next, and I've got some stuff for him. And so this time I just grabbed some up and goes that I had, and I grabbed, like, I've got this bamboo, like, little storage box about the size of a shoebox, and it had got crushed, and so it was broken into two pieces, and it meant that each two piece had a sort of a corner side. Well, one had a corner side where you could prop it up and on two corners, and the other one had a kind of like a corner that could be a base, so it could sit up by itself. And then I got a couple of markers. I got a black marker and a pink marker, and I raced back, and Paul was still there, and I just said, I think this could be good for your sign because it'll sit up by itself, and it also just means that you can start again. And I said, look, you have these health conditions, and I think that saying I have these, like, you can't have everything taking priority. You've got to have you've got to prioritise size-wise and whatever the keywords, people can see at a distance. It doesn't mean you can't write I have these or anything, well, gratefully received. It's just that you want to go, because he had emphysema, like arthritis in his back, and he was missing his top row of teeth, and I'd asked him about dentures, and I hate it when people go to suggest like the fucking obvious to me, and I assumed he had considered dentures before, but I was wondering if it was a financial problem or something, and I just asked him about the dentures, and he says, I do have some, but they don't fit properly, they don't look like they match my face, like they look really fake, like I'm a horse, and they just shift around in my mouth, and it's just like they don't help me eat at all, and I'm like, yeah, that sucks. And I didn't think I'd try to give him any more advice, because I'm sure he's tried all the troubleshooting he can with those, and so he's really limited in what he can eat. I can only imagine. I mean, I'm missing these teeth, and that's hard enough. And yeah, Lauren Osborne still got my dentures. What a lovely girl. And so I know that it's difficult to masticate on that side, and so I'm overusing this side, and it's probably not helping my TMJ disorder, dislocation. So I don't totally get it, but I can't even imagine. I mean, I don't know how you'd eat fucking anything without a top jaw. That's the whole point. You need two to crush food in between. So he was okay with a sandwich that's on the bottom. Definitely not okay with apples. Definitely not okay with crusty bread. And I was like, and he's like, I don't want to, like, he was just really, really, he wasn't like Skeeter personality wise, but they both just had that very gentle and very polite, respectful, they were just decent people, and they were like, like, he was like, I don't ever want to like say no to somebody, but like, he didn't like the fact that people were going to such efforts to bring him food that he just simply couldn't eat. And I was like, yeah, that beautiful young woman, she brought you the stuff. And he's like, I know, she went out of her way, like she went back. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, she really, really wants to help you. And I've got her the apples she bought you. Like, this is crazy. So I'm like, I think you've got a pot that you've got difficulty eating, like however you want to word it. Just like, that's going to be one of the three things you put up there. And it's not asking people, please don't bring me food that someone with a denture, please don't bring me this kind of food, because I know that that's not who you are, and you don't want to be bossy. Like, you're not even, you're not a pushy beggar. You're just saying what your situations are. And he put his ID out there. He had in a plastic sleeve, protective sleeve, his diagnoses, and he had his, I suppose, the medicine for his emphysema, and then he had a couple of soft toys like a moose and a cat there, which was really sweet. And he was wearing a light coloured grey hoodie and light coloured blue jeans, and just seemed to have laundered clothes and showered and that kind of thing. And the whole, he wasn't more deserving or more moral or anything than Skeeter, but yeah, just I think the dirty black clothes and the covered face don't help at all. And yeah, he just wanted to say, he was just obviously just like, I'm not trying to fool anyone, this is who I am. I'm not saying I'm homeless. I'm not homeless. I've got a shelter to stay in, but the people that I'm staying with are mostly mentally ill, and they're not particularly nice people to be around, and people steal my stuff, and there's cigarette smoking around there, and it's like, because he's got emphysema, he tries to stay away from that, so he just tries to get out a bit, and he finds the people around there quite nice. And yeah, and I was just like, yeah, I definitely know that you don't want to go asking people for specific types of food, but just do state that you have difficulty eating, and however you want to figure out how to word that, because it's not asking people, but it's just giving them heads up so they can make a thoughtful decision, right? Because there are some people who really, really, really are so kind-hearted, and they really, really want to help, and they do their best, and they've got no way of knowing that it's just not helpful. Yeah, which is heartbreaking, and he was feeling guilty about it. So yeah, I guess the point of this very long video is if you want to give food to people that you see on the street, you don't have to, but yeah, just ask them, what is it that you need? Like sometimes they just need some batteries so they can like have power a torch or for the night. You know, you just never know what they may need. And yeah, if you want to help, yeah, just say, hey, I want to spend a few bucks on you, anything I can get you from the supermarket that you, in particular that you're missing. Yeah, here we go.